I'm here today to tell you, if we're really going to get to the heart of well-being, we have to be thinking about relationships. We need to be thinking about the connection, not only of relationships, teachers and students, but students to each other, and students and teachers to the land and to the environment. So I want to start off by quoting a Mohawk elder that I heard a long time ago. His name is Tom Porter. And Tom spoke about, he's a Mohawk elder from Akwesasne, and he talked about how his grandmother had so many teachings for him. And one of them was one I want you to really think about, and that is our children are our sacred ones. That it's a sacred responsibility of a community to raise our children. Can you imagine if we had that as our guiding premise, that our children are the sacred ones? Also, our First Nations languages very often are action verbs rather than just static nouns. So the word for child in some of our Indigenous language means he or she who has the light within. So I'm going to ask you to think today about our role as educators, and thinking about our role is to look after and be with the sacred ones, and that our role is to engage them in their education, excite them, and see that light within shine. I think if we did truly think like that, then that we would move. We would move from thinking about what I've called stuffing the duck, of having our wonderful curriculum and just stuffing it into kids, right? And kids are saying, we're just so full, we're full. And instead, what education is about is much more about filling the pail. No, it's about lighting the fire. So how can we light the fire, and how can we then think about well-being? Because I'll tell you, we are seeing more and more challenges with our kids. So when we're talking about mental well-being, and that's what I'm going to focus a bit on, what are we actually talking about? So the World Health Organization says that mental well-being is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life. I want to come back to that. Can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. It's more than the absence of illness, it's about flourishing. But for us in Ontario, we've got a challenge. And I'm going to be a bit provocative in what my comments are. But when the CAMH, the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health, did a survey, and they do it every couple of years, what they've found between 2013 and 2015 is that kids are reporting more anxiety and overwhelming difficulties. So it increased significantly, if you just look at the top line, from 24 to 34%. And serious psychological distress was about 14%. And the front page of the Toronto Star, almost half of Ontario's youth miss school because of anxiety, a study is suggesting. But here's the good news. The good news is we are finding that schools can absolutely help children with those issues. When the children and the staff are reporting poor school climate in terms of relationships, when it's poor, the emotional difficulties are higher. When school relationships and connections are high, look at how low the difficulties with emotional. The one hand is at the school level, the other, on the other side of the graph, is how students themselves report. So what are our students saying? The way I read it is they are saying, you make a difference. That the relationships that are built when students are learning in a positive school climate affects their mental health in a positive direction, but also in a negative direction as well. So when we think about this new revolution, that well-being is going to be as important as achievement, what? well-being is going to be as important as achievement, then we really need to be thinking about, how does this make a teacher feel in terms of their sense of meaning and purpose? How can we support teachers who may have thought of themselves as a content deliverer? As an example, our ministry has asked all across the province, tell us, when you hear about well-being, what does it mean to you? What resonates? So what people said was really important is to have a sense of self and spirit, to have physical and emotional safety. It's not enough just to have physical safety, to have a sense of belonging. If we can accomplish one thing, and that every learner and every staff has a sense of belonging in education, we will bring the stress levels down. Because when you have a sense of belonging, your oxytocin is high, and that neutralizes cortisol. You can't belong and be stressed equally at the same time. Meaningful learning experiences. Well-being is about learning. Well-being is about achievement and feeling good. I can do this. It's not just about, there, dear, you know, I affirm you. You breathe in and out all day long. Have a sticker. It's about actually frickin' doing well. Supportive relationships and healthy minds and bodies. We have a brilliant early years pedagogy called How Does Learning Happen? And in that document, you see at the foundation is, are you creating the learning environment where they have this sense of belonging? Are children experiencing engagement in their learning? You know, there's this funny thing in the psychology, positive psychology world that we've known for so long, that when you're engaged in something that you really like, you do pretty well on it, right? So when you've got play-based learning, and all learning, I say, should be play-based learning, exploration of what I know, what I need to know, what I don't know. An sense of expression is also hugely important. This is requiring us to really stop and ask ourselves, what is our view of the child? What is our image of the child? Because the language that we use has a huge, huge impact. So do we think of children as empty vessels that we write all of our wonderful adult knowledge on? Or do we see them as competent, capable, creative, full of lots and lots of potential? We are going to need thinkers. We're going to need people who deal with conflict well. We're going to need to deal with kids who deal with failing well. We know that kids need to be active, they need to be physically, they need to be play, and so we should never, ever, ever, ever take away recess. Have another consequence, but don't take away, because what we know is that when kids are out and running and doing those exercises, they're releasing BDNF, which is brain-derived it's miracle grow for the brain. They're going to come in better learners if you let them play. We have to be thinking about the whole child, the social and emotional development. And we don't have to just bring in social and emotional development when a kid has a problem. We should be building the social and emotional development skills of kids, starting in our full day of learning, but continuing on. I'll tell you a worry. Here's my bit of controversy. I'm worried that we're focused a lot on mental illness. We have given kids language, but now when I hear and read that front page of the newspaper and hear that kids are almost half of kids are missing school because of anxiety. As a psychiatrist, one, it worries me because we will never have enough clinicians to treat that number of kids. But the other big thing here, and this is a bit of my controversy, is are we taking away kids' coping strategies by reifying anxiety? Remember that anxiety is good for us. It tells us, it gives us a warning that you need to do something different because of this feeling that you have, but feelings are not facts. We need to have ways of helping our kids cope with their anxiety. You know, we heard in a conversation recently, kids saying that, they have a lot of worry about what teachers expect. And rather than saying, it kind of sucks, man, that teachers ask different questions, different expectations, they said that it causes mental health issues. Well, it's not mental health issues, it's anxiety. And we have to learn how to deal with anxiety because the world is a pretty frickin' anxious place. And you can't be, do you know what I mean? I think we really have to be thinking about this, that somehow we need to strike the balance. Now, we have kids with disorder. I am not in any way minimizing the huge burden of mental health disorder. But I think we really have to be thinking about how within schools can we help kids develop the coping strategies, the engagement in their learning, the messages that I can do this is important. So we used to think that our genes determined how smart we were. We had this idea that the brain is kind of fixed. Well, what we now know is that the brain is plastic. It's not a question anymore, is it nature or is it nurture? Because now we know that nature and nurture interact with each other at different developmental times. And that the experience literally has the genes listening. What our littlest ones, our kids under 18, our teenagers, they are under construction. And I'm here to say that relationships and connections are literally building and sculpting the brains of our young people. How can we support teachers and students in their quest for human development? So why is this so crucially hinging on relationships? Because we are a social species. We are absolutely wired to connect. The brain is a social organ, and the modern human brain's primary environment is our matrix of social relationships. Create positive social experiences in the classroom. So here's something to think about. How can we take what Ontario is looking at, the global competencies, and saying we need in Ontario to be focusing more what are being called transferable skills. So here I have a hypothesis, and I've spoken about it, and Michael Fullen has written about it in his upcoming book. And that is, if you really do think about helping young people, and when I say helping, I mean teachers as gardener. Teacher as setting the stage and the conditions for what the students are capable of to flourish and grow. If you set the conditions where you're actually thinking about critical thinking, where kids are examining what would happen if, and what did I learn from this? If we're supporting, as Sir Ken Robinson so beautifully describes, innovation and creativity. But you know what you need in order to be creative? Is you need downtime. So self-directed learning, it's so important. It's so important that kids are not only encouraged, but allowed to take ownership and direct their learning, what they're interested in, how they collaborate with others, how they learn about communication and citizenship and compassion. So my hypothesis is that if we truly helped our young people develop these competencies right from the very beginning, we're immunizing them against further mental health issues. Incorporates well-being will ideally prevent depression, increase life satisfaction, encourage social responsibility, promote creativity, foster learning, and even enhance academic achievement. But here's the big interferer, and that is stress. So I've said that we have given stress a bad name. We've given stress and anxiety a bad name. It's as if it's wrong to have anxiety. It is not wrong to have anxiety. It is dreadful to have unmanageable anxiety. But we need to be working upstream. So the Center for the Developing Child at Harvard talks about 3 levels of stress. The first level is positive stress. It's like us being here as presenters. It's a bit anxiety-provoking, but it sure gets the juices flowing. It's great. But then there's tolerable stress. Tolerable stress where there's serious, temporary stress, but it's buffered by relationship. This is where we need to be focusing. We have School Mental Health Assist in Ontario, which I encourage you all to Google, School Mental Health Assist, which is talking about how we can create mentally healthy classrooms, how teachers don't need to become therapists. Please don't. You've got enough on your plate. But you can absolutely make a difference with the kids' anxiety. The stress we worry about is toxic stress. And I worry, as a child psychiatrist, as I do my talks all across the country, that more and more children are experiencing stressors that they experience as toxic. So what's it like? It's like walking home and you run into a bear. Suddenly, deep inside your brain, in your limbic brain, your amygdala, your fight or flight organ, sends off wild signals. It says, watch out, be on guard, this is dangerous. So what's happening when that goes off is I just want to go back. So when that happens, you've got your amygdala fires. It releases adrenaline, which makes your heart rate go fast and you sweat. It releases cortisol, which is our stress hormone. And that cortisol is good in the immediate because it gives you energy to get running. It helps with your vessel, all kinds of things. The problem occurs when that bear is always there. When that bear is always there, then you see the cortisol is up and up and up. It stays up. The adrenaline is firing. And an organ in the brain called the hippocampus, which is the teacher's friend, new learning and memory, when it gets turned on, it will say, okay, chill out, there's no problem here. The bear's gone. But when the bear is always there, when our kids are always feeling incredible stress and pressure, when the bully is always in the classroom, when the teachers are feeling pressure and pressure and pressure, that stress creates this behavioral cluster. The behavioral cluster of irritability, poor memory, difficulty focusing. This sound like anything to anybody? It's ADHD. It's trauma. It's so many symptom clusters that we see kids nowadays having. This is a wake-up call. The kids are our canary in the mine shaft. We have to be paying attention to their well-being and what we're hearing about their mental health issues. We as educators, I teach at the medical school, need to be thinking about how are we buffering the stress of our students. I'll tell you how we do it is through relationship. But what does it take? It is welcoming, including, understanding. It's about relationship. Now, what do all students need? From Kathy Short, the head of School Mental Health Assist, a warm welcome, a smile, a connection to a caring adult every day, a chance to learn, a safe place to learn. You get the picture. We all have it in us. We are in a world moment where we have learned that when we balance and when we connect, our relationship, our connection to our young people, they learn, they thrive, they soar. We need to focus on achievement and well-being as partners in the journey as human developers. So I thank you very much for your wonderful attention and hope there was one or two things that you can take. Thank you.